The smell of roasted turkey filled my parents' house as I walked through the front door, carrying a store-bought pumpkin pie. No, I know. Showing up to Thanksgiving with a grocery store pie is basically a cardinal sin in my family. But I've been working late all week and didn't have time to bake from scratch. Besides, I figured no one would really care that much. I was wrong about a lot of things that day. There he is. Mr. Successful, my sister Jennifer called out from the kitchen, her voice dripping with that particular blend of affection and sarcasm that only siblings can master. She was stationed at the stove, stirring gravy with a wooden spoon my mother has had since before I was born. I set the pie down on the counter and gave her a quick hug. Hey, Jen, how's it going? Oh, same old, same old. Still teaching third grade, still driving my 10-year-old Honda, still living in that cramped apartment. She smiled, but there was an edge to it. Not all of us can afford to disappear for months at a time like you do. I tensed slightly. My family had been giving me grief about my frequent work trips for the past year. I'd been vague about where I went and what I was doing, which apparently bothered them more than I'd realized. It's just work stuff, I said, keeping my tone light. Nothing exciting. My mother emerged from the dining room, wiping her hands on her apron. Work stuff? Honey, you never tell us anything about what you do anymore. Are you in some kind of trouble? You're not doing anything illegal, are you? Mom, no. Everything's fine. I promise. She gave me that look mothers give when they don't quite believe you, but decide to let it go for the sake of family harmony. Well, dinner's almost ready. Your father's in the living room with Uncle Ray. Why don't you go say hello? I escaped to the living room, where Dad and Uncle Ray were engaged in their annual argument about football. My cousin Mike was there too, scrolling through his phone with the glazed expression of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. Hey, Dad. Uncle Ray. There's my boy. Dad stood up and pulled me into a bear hug. How's the tech world treating you? Can't complain, I said, which was my standard non-answer. Dinner proceeded normally for the first hour. We ate, we talked, we laughed at Uncle Ray's terrible jokes. My niece Sophia, Jennifer's 8-year-old daughter, told us all about her school play. It was nice, comfortable, everything a Thanksgiving should be. Then my phone rang. I usually silence my phone during family gatherings, but I've been expecting an important call from my financial advisor about some year-end tax planning. I glanced at the screen and saw his name. Sorry, I need to take this real quick, I said, standing up from the table. Can it wait? Mom asked, frowning. It's about work. I'll be fast, I promise. I stepped into my parents' home office, the small room my dad uses for paying bills and my mom uses for her book club video calls. I closed the door and answered. Hey, Richard. What's up? Sorry to bother you on Thanksgiving, but I wanted to give you an update on those portfolio adjustments we discussed. With the market performance this quarter, your total liquid assets are now sitting at just over $12,300,000. I wanted to confirm whether you want to move forward with the real estate investment we talked about, or if you'd prefer to keep that capital more liquid for now. We talked for maybe 5 minutes about diversification strategies and tax implications. It was boring financial stuff, the kind of conversation that would put most people to sleep. I hung up, took a deep breath, and headed back to dinner. That's when I realized I'd made a catastrophic mistake. The door hadn't closed all the way. It had been open maybe 2 or 3 inches. Just enough. I walked back into the dining room to find 7 pairs of eyes staring at me with expressions ranging from shock to confusion to something that looked uncomfortably like hunger. Jennifer spoke first. $12 million? My stomach dropped. You were listening to my private phone call? The door was open, she said defensively. We weren't trying to eavesdrop, but we couldn't exactly not hear you. $12 million, Chris? Are you serious right now? Everyone started talking at once. How is that even possible? Mom demanded. Why didn't you tell us? Dad asked, looking hurt. That's more money than I'll make in 3 lifetimes, Mike muttered. Uncle Ray let out a low whistle. Well, damn. Good for you, kid. I held up my hands, trying to calm everyone down. Look, can we not do this right now? It's Thanksgiving. Let's just enjoy our meal. But Jennifer wasn't letting go. She stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Not do this right now? Chris, you have $12 million. $12 million. And you've been watching all of us struggle while you just, hoarded it all for yourself. That's not fair, I said quietly. Not fair? I'm a single mother working a teacher's salary. I can barely afford Sophia's school supplies. Do you know what I could do with even a fraction of that money? The room went silent. Even little Sophia had stopped eating, her wide eyes darting between her mother and me. This was the moment everything changed. The moment my family stopped seeing me as Chris, their son and brother, and started seeing me as something else entirely. A bank account with legs. Before I explain what happened next, you need to understand how I got here. Because my family's reaction makes a little more sense when you know the full story, even if I still think they were completely out of line. 8 years ago, I was broke. Not struggling broke. Not paycheck to paycheck broke. Actually, genuinely broke. I just graduated from college with a degree in computer science and a mountain of student debt. I moved back in with my parents because I couldn't afford my own place. I was working at Best Buy earning minimum wage while sending out hundreds of job applications and getting nothing but rejection emails. My family was sympathetic at first, but as months turned into a year, their patience wore thin. Jennifer, who was 5 years older and already established in her teaching career, would make little comments about me finding direction and getting serious about life. Dad would leave job postings on my bed. Mom would sigh heavily every time she saw me eating cereal for dinner because I couldn't afford groceries. I felt like a complete failure. At 23, I was living in my childhood bedroom, working a dead-end job, and watching all my college friends start real careers while I went nowhere. Then I met Marcus. Marcus was a customer at Best Buy, a middle-aged entrepreneur who came in looking for equipment for his startup. We got talking about technology, and he seemed impressed by my knowledge. Before he left, he handed me his business card and told me to give him a call if I was interested in a job. I called him that night. Marcus's company was developing an AI-powered data analytics platform for small businesses. It was early days, just him and 2 other people working out of a cramped office space downtown. He couldn't pay me much, barely more than I was making at Best Buy, but he offered me equity, 10% of the company. My family thought I was insane when I quit Best Buy to work for a startup that might fail within 6 months. You're giving up a stable job for this? Jennifer asked, incredulous. It's not stable, it's minimum wage retail, I pointed out. At least it's guaranteed income, she shot back. My parents were worried, but tried to be supportive. Dad sat me down and gave me a long talk about financial responsibility and not putting all my eggs in one basket. Mom just hugged me and told me to be careful. I moved out of my parents' house and into a tiny studio apartment with 3 roommates. I ate ramen noodles for most meals. I worked 70-hour weeks, teaching myself advanced programming languages in the evenings. It was brutal, but for the first time since graduating, I felt like I was actually building something. The company struggled for the first 2 years. We almost went under 3 separate times. But Marcus was brilliant at networking, and slowly we started landing clients. Small businesses loved our platform because it gave them insights they couldn't afford from bigger analytics companies. Then, 4 years ago, something incredible happened. A major tech conglomerate approached us about acquisition. They'd been watching our growth and wanted to integrate our platform into their suite of business tools. The offer was staggering. $240 million. My 10% equity suddenly translated to $24 million before taxes. I was 27 years old, and I became a multimillionaire overnight. After taxes, fees, and setting aside money for long-term investments, I had about $12 million in liquid assets. The kind of money that could change not just my life, but my entire family's lives if I chose to share it. But I didn't tell them. Not immediately. I had my reasons. Growing up, I'd watched how money tore families apart. My Uncle Ray had borrowed money from my grandparents to start a business. And when it failed, they didn't speak for 5 years. Jennifer's ex-husband had constantly borrowed money from her during their marriage, claiming he'd pay it back. And he never did. I'd seen my parents lend money to friends who suddenly became distant when repayment became awkward. Money changes relationships. It creates expectations, resentments, and obligations that can poison even the closest bonds. So I kept quiet. I continued living relatively modestly. I moved into a nicer apartment, but nothing flashy. I drove a decent car, but not a luxury vehicle. I told my family I was doing fine at work, that I'd gotten a good promotion. They seemed happy for me, if a little distant. They assumed I was making maybe 6 figures, which put me comfortably above them, but not so far above that it created tension. I'd planned to tell them eventually, maybe when I figured out exactly how I wanted to handle it. Maybe when enough time had passed that it wouldn't fundamentally alter our relationships. But now, thanks to one overheard phone call, that choice had been taken from me. The rest of Thanksgiving dinner was painfully awkward. We tried to continue eating, but the turkey might as well have been cardboard. Every few minutes, someone would steal a glance at me, and I could practically see the calculations happening behind their eyes. Jennifer finally broke the uncomfortable silence. So, $12 million. That's real money, Chris. It is, I acknowledged, not sure where this was going. And you've had it for how long? A few years. Her jaw clenched. A few years. While I've been struggling to pay for Sophia's dental work and new shoes and everything else she needs. You've been sitting on millions of dollars. Jen, I didn't know you were struggling with Sophia's expenses. You never said anything. I shouldn't have to beg my brother for help. Her voice rose sharply. Family is supposed to look out for each other. You should have offered. Mom reached across the table and put her hand on Jennifer's arm. Honey, come down. This isn't the time or place. But the floodgates had opened. Jennifer pulled her arm away and stood up again, this time moving toward me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. Do you know what my life is like? I'm a single mother living in a 600 square foot apartment because it's all I can afford on a teacher's salary. I buy generic cereal and off-brand clothes. I haven't been on a vacation in 4 years. Meanwhile, you're over here with enough money to solve every single one of my problems. And you just said nothing. It's my money, Jen. I earned it by getting lucky. You got lucky with some startup. And now you think you're too good to help your own family? Uncle Ray, sensing an opportunity, chimed in. You know, Chris, your Aunt Linda and I have been having some trouble with our mortgage lately. The bank's been threatening foreclosure. If you could see your way to helping us out with maybe $50,000, just to get us back on track. $50,000? I repeated, unable to believe what I was hearing. It's nothing to you, he said with a shrug. You'd barely notice it missing. But for us, it would mean keeping our home. Dad, who had been quiet up until now, cleared his throat. Son, I think we need to have a serious family discussion about this. Your mother and I have been living on my pension and her Social Security. We're doing okay, but it would be nice not to worry about every unexpected expense. A medical emergency, a new roof, anything like that could really set us back. Dad, are you asking me for money? He looked uncomfortable. I'm saying that it's natural for successful children to help their aging parents. It's what families do. I looked around the table. Mike was nodding along, clearly hoping his connection to the family might get him something too. My mother had tears in her eyes, though I couldn't tell if they were from stress or hurt feelings or something else entirely. Even Sophia was watching me with a confused expression, too young to understand the adult dynamics, but old enough to sense the tension. Jennifer pulled out her phone and started typing. I'm making a list of what I need. First, there's Sophia's college fund. I haven't been able to save nearly enough. Then there's my student loans. They're still hanging over me after all these years. And I really need a newer car. Mine's been making this weird noise for months. Jennifer, stop. She looked up at me, eyes defiant. Stop what? Stop asking my wealthy brother for help? Stop trying to give my daughter a better life. Stop acting like I owe you this. The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Jennifer's face turned red. Owe me? You're right. You don't owe me anything. Just like I didn't owe you anything when you needed a place to crash after your first apartment fell through. Or when I lent you my car for 3 months when yours broke down and you couldn't afford to fix it. Or when I helped you with your resume and interview prep when you were job hunting. But I did those things anyway, because that's what family does. She had a point and it stung. Jennifer had helped me during my roughest years. So had my parents, letting me live with them rent-free when I was broke and hopeless. But this felt different. This felt like emotional blackmail. How much? I asked quietly. How much would be enough? Jennifer blinked, caught off guard by the question. What do you mean? If I wrote you a check right now, how much would make you happy? How much would be enough to satisfy you? She thought about it. I don't know. 200,000? That would cover Sophia's college fund, my loans, a new car, and give us some breathing room. 200,000, I repeated. I looked at Uncle Ray. And you want 50,000. I turned to my parents. What about you guys? What number would make you happy? Dad shifted uncomfortably. Chris, it's not about a specific number. But it is, though. You're all sitting here calculating what you think you deserve from my bank account. So let's put numbers on it. What do you want? Mom started crying for real now. Why are you being so cruel? We're your family. I'm not being cruel. I'm being realistic. You want my money? Fine. Let's talk about money. Let's put a price on our relationships and see how that feels. Jennifer grabbed her purse. Come on, Sophia. We're leaving. Jen, wait. But she was already heading for the door, her daughter trailing behind her with a confused, scared expression. The door slammed behind them with enough force to rattle the pictures on the wall. Uncle Ray stood up next, muttering something about not being appreciated. Mike followed, pulling out his phone to presumably text Jennifer about what a jerk I was being. That left me alone with my parents in a dining room still full of half-eaten Thanksgiving food. You handled that poorly, Dad said after a long silence. Did I? Or did everyone else handle it poorly by immediately demanding my money the second they found out about it? They didn't demand, Mom said weakly. Really? Because it sure felt like demand to me. I stayed at my parents' house for another hour, and it was one of the most uncomfortable hours of my life. We tried to talk it through, but we kept going in circles. They insisted they weren't demanding anything, just hoping I'd want to help family. I insisted that descending on me the moment they learned about my money and listing everything they needed felt a lot like demands. You don't understand what it's like to struggle, Mom said at one point. That almost made me laugh. I don't understand struggle? Mom, I lived it. I was broke for years. The difference is I didn't expect anyone to save me. I worked my way out of it. With a lucky break, Dad pointed out. You said so yourself. You got lucky with that startup. I got lucky after working 70-hour weeks for poverty wages for 2 years. I got lucky after teaching myself advanced skills in my spare time. I got lucky after taking a huge risk that everyone, including this family, told me was stupid. Yeah, luck played a role, but I created the conditions for that luck to matter. So now you're too proud to help the people who supported you when you had nothing? I stood up from the table. I'm not too proud. I'm just tired of being treated like an ATM machine 5 minutes after you learned about my financial situation. Not one person asked me how I was doing. Not one person said they were proud of me. It went straight to, what can I get from you? I grabbed my coat and headed for the door. Chris, Mom called after me. Don't leave like this. I need some space. I'll call you in a few days. I drove back to my apartment in a daze. My phone started ringing before I even made it to the highway. Jennifer. I sent it to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. Then she started texting. Jennifer. You're really going to throw away our relationship over money? Jennifer. I can't believe how selfish you become. Jennifer. Sophia was crying in the car, asking why Uncle Chris doesn't love us anymore. That last one was a low blow, and she knew it. Using her daughter as emotional leverage was manipulative as hell, but I could see why she'd do it. She was desperate and angry and probably felt betrayed. I didn't respond to any of the messages. Over the next few days, the pressure campaign intensified. Uncle Ray called to apologize for coming on too strong, but then pivoted into explaining in detail how dire his financial situation really was. Mom called every day, sometimes crying, begging me to reconsider helping Jennifer. Dad sent long emails about family values and responsibility, but it was Jennifer who went nuclear. She posted on Facebook, nothing specific about the amount, but enough to make it clear that I'd come into money and was refusing to help family. She painted herself as the struggling single mother with a heartless, wealthy brother. The comment section filled up with people I'd gone to high school with, most of whom I hadn't spoken to in years, calling me selfish and cruel. Some of my extended family members I barely knew started messaging me. A cousin I hadn't seen since I was 12 asked if I could help with her medical bills. An aunt I'd met maybe 3 times asked if I'd consider funding her daughter's wedding. It was like blood in the water, and sharks were circling from every direction. I ended up calling Richard, my financial advisor, who had inadvertently triggered this whole mess. I'm sorry, he said when I explained the situation. I should have been more careful about calling during a family gathering. It's not your fault. The door should have been closed. And honestly, they probably would have found out eventually anyway. For what it's worth, this happens more often than you'd think. Sudden wealth, whether from inheritance, startup success, lottery winnings, whatever, it changes family dynamics. People feel entitled to a share. What do people usually do? Some give in and regret it later. Some cut off their families entirely. Most find some middle ground, but it's never easy. The key question you need to answer is, what do you actually want to do? Not what you feel obligated to do, not what will make people stop bothering you, but what feels right to you. I thought about it for a long time after we hung up. What did I want? I wanted my family to be proud of me, not see me as a resource to exploit. I wanted to help people I cared about, but on my terms, not because I was being emotionally blackmailed. I wanted relationships based on love and respect, not financial transactions. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I needed to set boundaries, even if those boundaries hurt people's feelings, especially if those boundaries hurt people's feelings, because that discomfort meant I was actually enforcing them instead of caving to pressure. I drafted a message and sent it to my family group chat. I know everyone is upset about Thanksgiving. I understand you all have financial struggles, and I'm sorry I didn't handle the situation better. But I need to be clear about something. My money is mine. I earned it, and I get to decide how to use it. That doesn't mean I won't help family, but it means I'll do so on my own timeline in my own way, when I feel it's genuinely needed and not just because people found out I'm wealthy. If anyone can't accept that, I understand, but I won't be guilt or manipulated into making financial decisions I'm not comfortable with. The responses came fast. Jennifer. So that's it? You're choosing money over family? Uncle Ray. I thought you were better than this kid. Mom. You're breaking my heart. Dad. We raised you better than this. Only one person responded differently. It was my cousin Sarah, Uncle Ray's daughter, who I'd always gotten along with, but wasn't particularly close to. Sarah, I get it. I'm sorry everyone's being like this. For what it's worth, good for you for setting boundaries. That single message meant more to me than she probably realized. It's been 6 months since that disastrous Thanksgiving. The situation hasn't magically resolved itself, but it has evolved in ways I didn't expect. Jennifer and I didn't speak for 3 months. She eventually reached out with an apology. She said she was sorry for reacting so strongly, but maintained that she still thought I should help her. We had coffee, and I explained that I wanted to contribute to Sophia's college fund, not because she demanded it, but because I genuinely wanted to help my niece. I set up a fund with $50,000 to be managed by a trustee until Sophia turns 18. Jennifer wanted more, of course. She wanted me to clear her student loans and buy her a new car. I said no, and she was angry again, but less explosively than before. She since stopped asking directly, though she still makes pointed comments about her financial situation whenever we talk. We're working on rebuilding our relationship, but it's not the same. There's a transactional quality to our interactions now that makes me sad. I can't tell if she calls because she wants to talk to me or because she's hoping I'll eventually give in to her other requests. My parents and I went to family therapy. Yes, Rick, it was Mom's idea, surprisingly. She admitted that the way the family reacted at Thanksgiving was wrong, but she also felt hurt that I'd hidden such a significant part of my life from them for years. The therapist helped us understand each other's perspectives better. I explained why I kept the money secret, fear of exactly what ended up happening, that my relationships would become about money instead of love. They explained that learning about it the way they did made them feel excluded from my life, like I didn't trust them. We're in a better place now. I've agreed to be more open about my life, and they've agreed to respect my boundaries around money. I'm helping them out with some home repairs they've been putting off, not because they asked, but because I offered. That distinction matters to me. Uncle Ray and I aren't really speaking anymore. He sent a few more messages asking for loans that we both knew he'd never repay, and when I stopped responding, he sent a final angry message calling me a greedy disappointment. I blocked his number. Some relationships aren't worth saving. The Facebook drama died down eventually, though some people in my hometown apparently still think I'm a terrible person. I've made peace with that. You can't control what people think of you, and trying to do so will drive you crazy. I've actually started using my money in ways that feel meaningful. I've been donating to causes I care about, funding scholarships for computer science students from low-income backgrounds, and investing in small businesses owned by people who remind me of myself 8 years ago. It feels good to help on my own terms. I've also been more open with my close friends about my situation. Turns out, real friends don't treat you differently when they learn you have money. They make jokes about you paying for dinner, you laugh, and sometimes you do pay for dinner, and then you move on with your lives because your friendship is based on more than financial transactions. The biggest lesson I've learned is that money reveals character. It doesn't create it. The people who saw me as a bank account to exploit were always going to be that way, whether I had $12 or $12 million. The people who valued me for who I am continue to do so, regardless of my bank balance. Would I change anything about how I handled Thanksgiving? Maybe. I could have been gentler in my responses. I could have had private conversations instead of addressing everything at the dinner table. I could have tried harder to explain my perspective before getting defensive. But I don't regret setting boundaries. I don't regret refusing to be manipulated. And I don't regret protecting something I worked incredibly hard to achieve. Sometimes people ask me if having money made me happy. The honest answer is complicated. The money itself doesn't make me happy. Financial security is nice. Not worrying about bills is nice. Being able to help causes I care about is nice. But what makes me genuinely happy are the relationships that survived the revelation of my wealth. The people who stuck around even after learning I wasn't going to fund their dreams. The ones who called to check on how I was doing instead of how much I could give them. My family will probably never fully understand why I handled things the way I did. They might always see me as the selfish brother who chose money over family. That hurts, but I can live with it because I know the truth. I didn't choose money over family. I chose self-respect and healthy boundaries. I chose relationships based on genuine connection rather than financial obligation. I chose to be generous on my own terms instead of being guilt into it. If Thanksgiving taught me anything, it's that family is important, but not at the cost of your own well-being. Love shouldn't come with a price tag. And the moment it does, you need to seriously examine what you're really dealing with. Would I do it all again? The startup, the risk, the wealth? Absolutely. But next time someone asks for my financial advisor's number, I'm definitely making sure the door is completely closed. Last week, I had Thanksgiving at my apartment. It's me, Sarah, and a couple of close friends who've known me since my broke days. We ordered pizza, played board games, and nobody asked me for a dime. It was the best Thanksgiving I've had in years. Jennifer texted me a photo of her and Sophia at my parents' house for their Thanksgiving dinner. The message said, "Missing you today. Hope you're doing okay." I texted back, "You too. Tell Sophia I love her." It's not perfect. It's not what I imagined my family relationships would look like. But it's honest, and for now that's enough. Because at the end of the day, $12 million can buy a lot of things. But it can't buy genuine connection, and it can't buy peace of mind. Those you have to earn yourself. And they're worth more than any amount of money could ever be. Chris arrives at his parents' house for Thanksgiving dinner, carrying a store-bought pumpkin pie and expecting a normal family holiday. His sister Jennifer teases him about his frequent work trips and mysterious career, while his parents worry he might be in some kind of trouble due to his secrecy. The family gathers around the dinner table, and for the first hour, everything seems perfectly ordinary. Then Chris's phone rings. It's his financial advisor calling about year-end tax planning. Chris steps into his parents' home office to take the call, not realizing the door doesn't close completely. During the conversation, his advisor mentions that Chris's liquid assets now total over $12 million and asks about potential real estate investments. When Chris returns to the dining room, he's met with shocked stares. The family overheard everything. His carefully guarded secret, the wealth he's been hiding for years, is now exposed. His sister Jennifer speaks first, unable to comprehend how her brother could have $12 million while she struggles as a single mother on a teacher's salary. The revelation transforms the pleasant family gathering into an uncomfortable interrogation. Chris learns that his secret wasn't just about the money. It was about trust. His family feels betrayed that he kept such a significant part of his life hidden from them for years. The backstory emerges through Chris's explanation. 8 years earlier, he was broke, living with his parents after college graduation, working minimum wage at Best Buy while drowning in student loan debt. His family grew impatient with his lack of direction. Then he met Marcus, an entrepreneur who offered him a job at his startup developing AI-powered data analytics software. The pay was terrible, but Marcus offered equity, 10% of the company. Everyone thought Chris was crazy to leave his stable retail job for a risky startup. He moved into a cramped apartment with roommates, ate ramen noodles, and worked 70-hour weeks while teaching himself advanced programming skills. The company nearly failed 3 times in the first 2 years. Then, 4 years ago, a major tech conglomerate acquired the company for $240 million. Chris's 10% stake suddenly became $24 million. After taxes and investments, he had approximately $12 million in liquid assets. He was 27 years old and a multimillionaire. But Chris didn't tell his family. He'd witnessed how money destroyed relationships throughout his life. Uncle Ray's failed loan from grandparents. Jennifer's ex-husband constantly borrowing money. Friends becoming distant after loans. He feared that revealing his wealth would fundamentally alter his family relationships, creating expectations and resentments that would poison their bonds. So he kept quiet, living modestly and telling his family he'd gotten a good promotion. He planned to tell them eventually, when the timing felt right. That choice was stolen from him by one overheard phone conversation. At the Thanksgiving table, the demands begin almost immediately. Jennifer calculates everything she needs. Sophia's college fund, her student loans, and new car. She suggests $200,000 would be appropriate. Uncle Ray needs $50,000 to avoid foreclosure. Chris's parents hint that successful children naturally help aging parents with expenses. Even distant cousin Mike nods along, hoping for a piece of the wealth. Chris feels ambushed. Not one person congratulates him or asks how he's doing. The conversation goes straight to what they can get from him. When he pushes back, asking everyone to put specific numbers on what they want, Jennifer accuses him of cruelty. She reminds him of all the times she helped him when he was broke, lending him her car, helping with his resume, supporting him through his struggles. The guilt tactic stings because it's partially true. Jennifer and his parents did help him during his lowest years. But Chris sees a crucial difference between voluntary support during hard times and immediate demands the moment someone discovers wealth. Jennifer storms out with her daughter Sophia, slamming the door. Uncle Ray leaves, muttering about being unappreciated. Chris stays with his parents, trying to explain his perspective, but they keep circling back to family obligation. They insist they weren't demanding anything, just hoping he'd want to help. Chris argues that listing their needs immediately after learning about his money felt exactly like demands. Over the following days, the pressure campaign intensifies. Jennifer calls and texts repeatedly, eventually using Sophia as emotional leverage, claiming the child was crying and asking why Uncle Chris doesn't love them anymore. Uncle Ray apologizes, but then explains his dire financial situation in detail. Chris's parents call daily, sometimes in tears. Jennifer escalates by posting on Facebook, painting herself as a struggling single mother with a heartless, wealthy brother. The post goes semi-viral in their hometown, with people Chris barely knows condemning him as selfish. Extended family members he hasn't seen in years start messaging with requests for help. Medical bills, wedding funding, various emergencies. Chris consults his financial advisor, who explains this is common with sudden wealth. The key question is what Chris actually wants to do, not what will stop people from bothering him. After deep reflection, Chris realizes he wants relationships based on love and respect, not financial transactions. He wants to help people on his own terms, not through emotional blackmail. He sends a message to his family group chat establishing firm boundaries. He acknowledges their struggles, but makes clear that his money is his to control. He'll help when and how he chooses, not because he's being guilted into it. The responses are mostly negative, accusing him of choosing money over family. 6 months later, the situation has evolved. Jennifer and Chris are slowly rebuilding their relationship after 3 months of silence. He contributed $50,000 to Sophia's college fund on his own terms, managed by a trustee. Jennifer still wants more. Her loans cleared, a new car, but Chris maintains his boundaries. Chris and his parents attended family therapy, which helped them understand each other's perspectives. He now helps them with home repairs because he offered, not because they demanded. That distinction matters deeply to him. Uncle Ray isn't in his life anymore. Some relationships aren't worth saving. The Facebook drama died down, though some people in his hometown still think he's terrible. Chris has made peace with that. He's been using his money meaningfully, donating to causes he cares about, funding scholarships for low-income computer science students, investing in small businesses. He's learned that money reveals character rather than creating it. Real friends didn't treat him differently when they learned about his wealth. Chris reflects that financial security is nice, but what makes him genuinely happy are the relationships that survived the revelation. The people who stuck around without expecting funding. The ones who checked on his well-being instead of his bank balance. His family may always see him as selfish for choosing boundaries over obligation. That hurts, but he can live with it. He didn't choose money over family. He chose self-respect and healthy relationships over guilt and manipulation. Last Thanksgiving, Chris celebrated at his apartment with his cousin Sarah and close friends. They ordered pizza and played board games. Nobody asked him for money. It was the best Thanksgiving he'd had in years. Jennifer texted him a photo from his parents' house, saying she missed him. He responded with love. It's not perfect, but it's honest. And Chris has learned that genuine connection and peace of mind can't be bought. They have to be earned. Those things are worth more than any amount of money could ever be.